Hey there, fellow wargamers. It's your man. It's the Sentinel from across the tabletop. In the last episode, or the last video I did, we talked about the changes to the Imperial Fist secondary. I wanted to go a little bit longer into depth to how that's going to affect our matchups, our army builds, talk about armor contempt and how that's going to change some of the armies that you're going to face, weapon systems that you're going to come across on the tabletop that I think are going to be more prevalent now, and some of the army compositions that I've been working on and having some results against. And I have to say, the changes to armor contempt and the changes to the Arks of Omen detachment, which is amazing. I think it hinders us a little bit because we were taken from two of the areas that worked really well with us, the elite section and the heavy support section. We weren't delving too heavy into each one of them, but we leaned into more of the elite, followed up with the in the sense of we took 4 elites and 4 heavy supports. So patrol detachments worked really well. Now that we can't do that, it's a 3 elites and maybe 4 or 5 heavy, so we have to be more careful about where we put our points. So let's have a quick talk about some of the other changes in the Arks of Omen. We now have a detachment that we can take, the Arks of Omen detachment. If you haven't already seen it, it's essentially a brand new detachment. There's no more patrol, there's no more battalion, vanguard, and that sort of detachments. It's now just a simple detachment where you take a minimum of a HQ. Doesn't have to be warlord, remember, it just means it has to be a HQ element from the codex you're using. And once you take that codex and that HQ, the rest of the detachment falls underneath that codex itself. So for instance, if you want to run Imperial Fists, you take the Space Marines Codex and you take the supplement Imperial Fists, and then you run all of your Space Marine units in that detachment as that one chapter specific. And then on top of that, there is the Battle Brother detachment, which is where you put your Inquisitor if you wanted to run one, like I was previously. Instead of being a alternative slot you can bolt onto detachment, it now comes under the allied detachment. Essentially, it's not a free organization slot you just take. You have to take an allied detachment of an Inquisitor. Now that means you could just take the Inquisitor and the Ordo Assassination, but it does mean it comes slightly different variation to how you would take it normally. But we'll get into that anyway. And I think that sort of meta for Marines taking an Inquisitor on its own to do psychic interrogation has now gone. So that's the detachment. You take a HQ, you get the choice then of that's your minimum HQ has to be 1. You then have to select a troop, elite, fast attack, heavy slot to be able to manifest your detachment itself, and then you have to fill those out with 3. So it's 3 minimum 3 troops, elites, fast attack, or heavy. And once those are filled, you get the option then from after that is for another 3 of any of those troops. 9 troops, you get additional 9 troop slots. You get an additional 3 elites, 3 heavy support, 3 fast attack. You then get 3 characters for free that fall into the elite section. You can have 3 elite characters, 3 HQ characters for another for optional. You get 3 fortifications, 3 super heavies, 2 air wing detachments. You can take 2 flyers if you want in the same detachment. I don't think I'm missing anything. I could just bring it up and read it off by heart, but you know me and my setups. So yeah, some interesting changes there that are going to make army list building slightly different than what we'd expect to see, which is great because it means it's a change. And that's what this is all about. It's making a change in the meta, making a change on the armies, making a change of what models we see. And of course, that all comes back to selling new models for GW, because that's what their primary function is to create a model and sell it. And if they can create a system where it changes ever so often, new models are sold, which is an amazing business model, and well done to GW for coming up with it. As someone on the other end, buying the models, it's a little bit frustrating, but I understand as a business that's what they need to do. And if I want to take part in their business model, and if I don't want to take part in their business model, I don't have to buy it. I don't have to do this. This is something that I've chosen as a customer to take part in because I really enjoy the hobby. I really enjoyed getting to know the guys at the tournaments, and I think it's a great hobby in my belief. I love it anyway. I've been doing it for since I was like 13, 14, so nearly nearly, I say nearly 30 years, nearly 25 years. So 25 years doing this. Absolutely really enjoyed the game, and seeing the additions from like third and fourth edition evolving into fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth, and seeing all the transitions between the additions and how the modeling have gone. I mean, in fourth and fifth, you're lucky if you get one codex in 6 years. You know, and you had to use that one codex with all the FAQs that GW are doing now, and the fact that they're bringing out these changes every 3 to 6 months with the new seasons is just phenomenal for the interaction that they used to have when they originally started as the D&D company. They did supplying D&D models for those that are interested in D&D, and they wanted to run like little models with. That's what they started as a company, creating those sort of models, and they did a Citadel. So to develop to where they are now, where they're creating a community of hundreds of thousands of people all the way across the world, communicating with each other, reference these rules, and the models that they make is mind blowing in the sense in 50 years, because I want to say early 70s they started. So why not just give them a round of applause for what they've done in the community and how they're improving the interaction they're doing with us. So enough about me worshipping GW. Let's go to the horrible bits. They didn't change any of the missions. Boo. We would have loved to have seen some new missions. Understandable with hype talk about 10th, and this is something that they've only really started in the last year doing with the chapter approved missions. So would have loved to have seen some different missions, please, DW. I know they're probably on the bench and in the talks, if not already prepped and ready for 10th. So well, if that's coming or not this year, it might be next year. I'm hoping it's next year and we get another 12 months of these amazing books. But yeah, we would have liked to see some new missions. There is a change to one of the missions, Abandoned Sanctuary. It used to be a 5-point swing for holding the center of the board at the end. So you used to get 2 points for it's 5 objectives, 1 in each deployment zone, 3 in no man's land, and it used to make a cross on the board. And it was a long deployment, so Dawn of War deployment, if you remember that from old school. Hammer and Anvil, Dawn of War, and I can't remember the other one, the diagonal one. Vanguard deployment, yeah, Vanguard. So Dawn of War deployment, and essentially you got the primary mission, so hold the objectives. All the primary missions have stayed the same, so it's hold 2 or hold 1, hold 1, hold 2, hold more, or hold 2, hold 3, hold more. So that's the same. The tertiary is now wrapped into the primary, as we would call it, the tertiary. So you've got primary, you choose your secondaries, and then you have the tertiary part of the primary, as in the old Natmund. In the new book, it's now just rolled into the primary. So you do it on top of doing the top hold 1, hold 2, hold 3. And that's usually like hold an objective for 3 points, kill a unit off it for 2. And in Abandoned Sanctuary, it was the center objective was the one that we were all concerned about. If you get onto the center objective at the end of your turn, you get 2 points. 2 points if you're controlling it. If you kill an enemy unit off the center objective, you got 2 points. If you do both, kill a unit and hold it, you got 3. And at the end of the game, that's gone up because it used to be just 2 full stop. So now at the end of the game, and at the end of the game of the old rules, you used to get 5 points if you held the sanctuary at the end of the game. So essentially you had a 7-point swing on objectives, which meant if you were holding yours and that one and then kill another one, you had a potential for a 12-19 point swing with hold more objectives, and that's what you're intending to try and do on the last turn. So you could score 19 points on your primary essentially on Abandoned Sanctuary on the last turn, which was too much of a point swing. So GW have done a fantastic job. They got rid of the 5 points, so you don't get the hold the sanctuary at the end for an additional 5 points, which means that it's more fair. And the other one I noticed in the book when going through it, and I've checked them all, I believe, if I'm right, quote me on this, I'm sure if someone will put me down in there, fact check me, that none of the primaries now for the tertiary part of the mission can be any more than 15 points throughout the game. So you're looking at scoring 3 points maximum per turn. When you look at the tear down the icons, which is do the bombs, it's actually capped at 15, so it doesn't matter how many bombs you put down. Once you hit the point mark of 15, so that's at 1, 2, 3, 4 bombs, that's it. You can't do any more. You can't even score 16 points. You maxed at 15. It's 4, 8, 12, 16. Yeah. So it really does sort of bring the balance in to that tertiary part of it, and I think it looks like they might be fading it out because they didn't make it a big part. They sort of brought it in line, so it might be a complete change of how they try and balance the primaries and the tertiary part of the missions out. So let's get into some of the other changes on the secondaries. For instance, if we go to, we've got our book here, and we're just going to go through like the shadow operations, purge enemies, and things like that. Purge the enemy assassination, you get, it's exactly the same, 3 for killing the character, 4 for the warlord, and then they put a bonus in if the troop roll, if your models on the board come from the troop section, then you gain a CP if they kill it. Not CP, yeah, CP, command point. If they kill the character, which is nice because part of the detachment for the Arks of Omen detachment does give you the option not to take any troops whatsoever. So this is a way to build your list to incorporate troops just in case you take this objective and just in case they have the opportunity. Most of the time they're not going to, but yeah, it's a nice little caveat they put in there to try and swing you to do it. Bring it down didn't change. Grind them down, they added the wording of war dogs and armiger class, because again, bring it down has got a little caveat. If troops do it, then you can get an extra CP. Now the troops just have to kill a unit, so you still have to kill more, but if you kill one of the units when you do kill more of grind them down, then you get a CP. No prisoners stayed exactly the same. Aboard the witch stayed exactly the same. The warp ritual stayed exactly the same. Went up in a warp value, so it went from being 3 to 4, and the same recycling interrogation went from 4 to 5. Then you've got behind enemy lines. This one's a great change for those armies that could potentially build towards it, which is now it's instead of having 2 points for one unit, you get 3, and then you get 4 points for 2. So they haven't made it super easy still to complete, but they've made it more a 9 to 12 instead of a push everything in and hope that you get 12 and 8 to 12. They made it now a 9 to 12, which is really nice. On average, we go for the averages. If you're building towards it, you should be scoring 15, but on an average score, you should be trying to achieve 9 to 12. And they've given you that ability now instead of 8 to 12 from the old books, which is really, really nice. Well, it wasn't 8 to 12. Yeah, it was 8 or 10. It was 8 to 10 with the old one. Now it's 9 to 12, which is much better. Engaging on front has changed slightly. Unfortunately, I think they should have just left it at 3 inches instead of having the caveat for all 4 quarters. Then it's 3. They should have just left it at 3 and made the secondary more competitive against behind enemy lines. And because I still think the faction one that is in Battle Supremacy is better than Engage. I still think if you took your factionary one, I think it's still better. So Engage, unfortunately, it's still not going to be seen as much in the high end of the tournament scene, but we'll see. Because again, it's 6 inches away for 2 points, and if you have all 4 quarters, because you've got to be in quarters, so 3 quarters for 2, 4 quarters for 3. I would have liked to have seen 2 quarters for 1. I know that sounds, but everybody can do that. But if you take it, it's 5 points, and then you're looking at maybe 7 or 8, and then that way it just feels like it's more, people can take it to just to functionally feel like they're scoring secondaries. I know that sounds a bit silly, but yeah, two quarters for 1 would have been nice to see. And then shadow operations, we've got raise the banners high, exactly the same, that hasn't changed. And then we had from retrieve Nephilim data to retrieve battlefield data, that hasn't changed, stay exactly the same, so it moved over to 6 inches still. Awesome. And you just add to the tally, and then the tally gives you the points. Okay, we saw the FAQ, so that's all the simple ones you get from the book. Being a Marine player, I'm going to quickly run through some of the Marine ones, what I think is good, what I think is bad, and where I think as a Marine player we should be taking or looking to build our armies to do. So I'll talk about the benefits of no armor contempt and where the armor contempt went in another video, and build lists to do these. So I'm just going to quickly go over them, and then I'll deep dive into build lists to complete, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So let's get into the Marine ones. Codex Warfare, it's huge now. It's 2 points for the devastating doctrine for killing, and all the F stayed as 1. GW either need to drop it down to 1 for everybody, or bring up them all up to 2. If you want to make it competitive within the market, then you put everything to 2. If you want to try and balance it, you bring it down to 1. And the reason why I say balance it is because it's still good in its sense of, if you're building to do any of the, if you're building to take Codex Warfare, you're building to take one of them, which means that you're building to do it in Devastated Doctrine, you're building to do it in the Devastated Doctrine, Tactical Doctrine, Assault Doctrine. So it's, you're building to do these in their certain doctrines and then not move from the doctrines. So if you increase it to 2 for everybody's doctrines, then you'll see an evenly taken between all the Marine players, and every Marine player will take it. If you drop it down to 1, you'll see other people take other things because they believe they can achieve their secondaries much more quickly, or something like that, or faster, or efficiently, and things like that. And it will bring it more in line with scoring between 10 and 15. At the moment, with Codex Warfare being 2 for the Devastated Doctrine, and those armies build into the Devastated Doctrine, they only have to kill 8 units, and they've maxed out. And as they're not going to be moving, and most armies bring 8 units or more, even knights with their 3 big ones and the war dogs, Codex Warfare for those armies that are building towards the Devastated Doctrine, hinting Imperial Fists are going to build to the Devastated Doctrine, then we're going to stay in it. And unfortunately, that's going to be Codex Warfare every game. Doesn't matter what army, how many units, it's just the efficiency. It's what the army's built to do, and that means it's guaranteed. And we don't want, I don't think GW want to build secondaries that are only ever taken in every game for that faction. I don't think that's the intention. It's supposed to be the codex sort of like balancing, so you get the choice. At the moment, because it's so powerful for some choices, it's a guaranteed in every army. Unfortunately, if they drop it down to 1, you might even have builds from certain armies then actually build to do Devastated Doctrine, to move to tactical, and then move to the assault, which is what the intention was when they FAQ'd it, essentially, to go through them after 8th. And I think if you drop down the 1 CP or keep it at 2, you'll see more army developments to do that, because it's more efficient. And that's my opinion on that one. Take it or leave it, it's up to you. No Mercy, No Respite, which is what the other one comes in. At the moment, gone back up to 2. Everything else stayed the same. So you get 2 points now for holding the middle. They FAQ'd it back down to 1, but they've reversed it. Interesting. It's definitely more takeable, but it's still that swing between going first and second. If you go in second, it's a guaranteed 10 to 12. If you go in first, then it's like an 8 to 12 sort of. So it's one of those. I think it's a great secondary still, especially on a 5 objective when you're trying to fight for the middle. But the ITC terrain, will be another conversation for another time. Okay, and then the last one is shot tactics. We saw the FAQ for that to go up to 4 victory points. Interesting. It's got to be built to it, but I believe it's still possible, especially now with the Devastated Doctrine doing the 2 damage for Codex Warfare. Those 2 fit really nicely together. You push onto an objective, and then you shoot the unit off the objective. You've now taken the objective, and you can do that with, you don't have an OBSEC to do that then, which gives you the 2 points for the Codex Warfare, and then the 4 points for shot tactics. We have a better trading game now with that particular secondary, which is going to make the game more interesting for Space Marine players, because it's now more viable with the cheaper point drops and the increase of units we can put on the table. Okay, we'll quickly go through the rest of them. Imperial Fist, I mentioned it. We get the now wording says 1 or more, means we can do it on all objectives if we need to. Iron Hands hasn't changed. Raven Guard, again, it gets the 1 or more. Salamanders, that was previewed. Incredible for Salamanders, I think that is. It's a definite take in the No Mercy, No Respite category. Space Wolves, 3. So this is just charging. That didn't change. So every time they charge with a unit, they get 3 points. Score 3 victory points if 2 or more Space Marine units from your army are engagement range. So they don't even have to charge. They just have to be there or complete a charge move. So these Thunderwall Cavalry now with Storm Shields at 4 or 5 wounds a pop at T5 with a 4-pin on. They're just running massive of these, charging in, taking this secondary for battlefield supremacy. And again, battlefield supremacy, you take this one over engage, you take this one over behind enemy lines, and you just charge all your units in. And every turn that they're still engagement range, or every time you do make a charge, you're gaining 3 points. So it's a win-win over the others anyway, that is. Ultramarines, we marched for McCrag, again calls into shadow operations, which is a bit of a difficult one, I think, to take in. If it's not really, really good, like the Imperial Fist one falls under the shadow operations, so data intercept is better, banners is better. So let's have a quick read and see if this one's any better. If you select this objective, in Ultramarines core infantry, so again it's restricted to what you unit with. Playing from a crag, one or more Ultramarines core infantry from your army can start performing this action at the end of your movement phase. Each unit from your army that starts performing this action must be within the range marker. The action is completed at the start of your next command phase, and if it is completed, whichever comes first, because you can do it on turn 5 and it comes at the end. If completed, the objective marker is said to be claimed and you gain 4. So that is identical. Sorry, that's identical to the Imperial Fists, apart from the caveat from the Imperial Fist one that states, and oh, say that's wrong because you can do it. Is it No Man's Land? Yeah, you could. So as is No Man's Land. So if we do it in No Man's Land, we get 4. You can still do this on your home objective. The issue is you've got to be there in the command phase next turn. So this one here is a 12, where the Imperial Fist one, if you think about 5 objectives, doing it on 3, one of them is your home, is 9 for the Imperial Fists. For the Ultramarines, it's a 12 because you get 2 generally and then 1 in your home. And you're fighting over 1 because the enemy sees it coming. Yeah, and it doesn't state anything anywhere that it is a yeah, this is the issue with the Imperial Fist one. But we do have the caveat for the Imperial Fist. We get light cover and heavy cover, so I don't know where I stand with that one. It's very, very similar to the Imperial Fist. It's in shadow operations. Because you have to do an action and stand there while the enemy shoots you off, I think data is better. Just purely the fact that you can do it completed at the end of your turn, so therefore the enemy can't stop you doing it. Banners, if you're doing this one, you're potentially looking at 12, and so is banners, to be honest. Banners is a 12 as well. If you're doing this action, it's a flip between those two, banners and this one. So there you go. Ultramarines, take that as you like. White Scars, and this is it killing? Yeah, destroying a unit in combat. So character and monster. This falls under purge the enemy, so I think that's where assassinate is. Yeah, and this one is character monsters. You know, score 1 victory point if you destroy an attack by White Scars. So any unit, if you destroy with a range attack. So yeah, to a maximum of 5. So that's the issue. This secondary maxes at 5. Yeah, I mean, putting a cap on it, I can understand. If they went back to putting a cap on the Codex Warfare, I wouldn't take it, because you're going to have a turn where you're going to do really, really well. You're going to kill 4 or 5 units if you're pushing that turn, because of course White Scars need to hold back. They put 1 unit in, you hold back, and then you smash everything at once. And hopefully your attack then damages the enemy enough that they can't recover, and then you can do the second wave. But that first wave is you're trying to kill 4 or 5 units, and if you do that, yeah, 1's a character, yeah, which is 3 points, and then you kill 3 other units, you've lost a victory point essentially. I just don't like the caps on things. I can get it on the primaries, I understand that. If you're having to do something like kill something, I don't think there should be a cap. You know, because you might be able to, you're as a commander making the decision to when the right time to strike is, and if that right time is to try and kill 10 units at once, then you shouldn't be punished in taking that secondary. You should be rewarded for being either really aggressive, really well played. You weaken the enemy to the point where when you did make your charges and kill him in combat, it was because you put all your bolter fire into 1 unit, dropped them down to 1 model, and the previous turn you did it to another unit, and then the previous turn, and then you charged them all the following turn. So it's a little bit disheartening to see the caps on these, but you know, it is what it is. So that is the Space Marines secondaries. Some good ones, some good changes, some medium changes. And I'll leave it there and catch you in another one. Drop us a comment, like, do all the sharing, all that sort of thing if you want to. I'll drop another video soon referencing what I think the build should be to achieve these secondaries and what armies I'm currently running. So I'll catch you in another one, guys, and take care, and bye bye.